Hello, everybody. With us today is the man who hit more home runs than anybody in the history of the Los Angeles Dodgers, Eric Karros. He belted 270. That's more than 40 more than the runner-up. He's also one of three Dodgers to say 5 years, I had 30 or more home runs and over 100 runs batted in. He's third on the all-time Dodger home run list behind Duke Snider and Gil Hodges. EK, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Ross.
Before we get started about the baseball impasse and about the Dodgers in general, I want to talk to you about you and the family. What are you doing these days?
I'm staying busy, still working for Fox. I have an opportunity to call games, work in the studio show as well. Been doing that. This is coming upon my 17th year. Previously, I was at ESPN for 2 years. So, yeah, I say wow, too, because I think of myself, as a baseball player, right? But I've spent more years in the broadcast world than I did on the field. So that's keeping me busy. I've got my family as well, 2 boys and a daughter, and both boys are up at UCLA right now playing ball. My daughter, a marriage and family therapist. And so a lot going on in my world.
Let's talk about your 2 sons who are playing for your alma mater, UCLA. Jared's a pitcher. He stands 6 feet 7 inches. Chris is a third baseman. He is 6 feet 5. How are they doing?
Well, it's not Chris, it's Kyle. Okay.
Kyle. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I get in trouble for that if I didn't correct you there, Ross.
Yeah, thank
you. So Jared and Kyle, they're both up at UCLA. Unfortunately, right now they're both hurt. Jared dealing with some back issues. Hopefully get that behind him and get going. And Kyle, third baseman, second game of the season, was hit in the wrist and suffered a fracture of the pisiform bone. So hopefully that it's not requiring surgery. We're going to get reevaluated in another week or 2 and see where he's at.
Will either one of them be able to play again later this season?
Well, hopefully both of them at some point. Hopefully Kyle, like I said, the surgery not required on the wrist, and hopefully that cleans up and a little rehab and ready to go. And the same with Jared. He's working hard to get back. They're just in the beginning of their season. So
yeah. Kyle was 3 for 6 against CSUN. He had a triple, a double, a single. Then he got hit.
Yeah.
Jared hadn't pitched this year, but Eric, I was looking at his numbers last year. Boy, he had some sensational stats, didn't he? ERA under 1, strikeout to walk ratio was like 6 to 1.
He's when he's healthy and he's as good and he competes as well as anybody. So that's just the key. Look, he's a long, lanky frame, 6'7". There's a lot of moving parts right there. So again, just both boys working hard to get back as soon as they can and see what lies ahead.
As a father, did you talk to either one of them, give them any kind of advice?
Well, I mean, I've spoken to them on numerous occasions throughout their growing up and trials and tribulations with baseball. And as you can probably attest to, Ross, there comes a stage where kids don't want to hear anything from dad sometimes.
Right.
So, but I do my best. They're great kids, and look at they're trying to make their own way. And look at my wife and I are always going to be there for support and helping them as well as we can.
And your daughter Micah was a good athlete too, wasn't she?
Yeah, Mika played basketball at UC Irvine. Was I think it was Big West at the time, all Big West, and led the conference in scoring and rebounding her sophomore year, and was on the same route her junior year, and then kind of took a divergent path, but all things have worked out as she's very successful, like I said, as a marriage and family therapist. And really in the last few years, unfortunately, with what's gone on in our world, that field has, become very popular as far as the need, people wanting to seek mental health benefits.
Well, that's wonderful. Okay, let's talk about the current problems in baseball. The year after you were Nationally Rookie of the Year, you graduated from UCLA. Your major had been economics.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been helpful to you in hearing the views of both the players and the owners?
Well, look, I'm not as close to things as I once was, right? So what I get and I gather is really through, the media and what's going on. And the reality is you're not going to hear the whole story, and you'll get bits and pieces. And, nowadays a lot of things are kind of skewed one way or the other. So it wouldn't be right for me to comment on things that I'm not really versed on. But what I will say is, look, I'm a fan now, right? I want baseball.
Yeah.
Compared to when I was going through this in 1994, and there was the strike, and then we lost the World Series, and then the beginning of '95 we didn't start, and we never came to an agreement. The reality was there was an injunction issued by Judge Sotomayor, the National Labor Relations Board, and that forced us to come back and play in 1995.
Hmm.
But I remember, that was a tough time. There was a lot of things going on, and what was publicly disseminated was, I don't want to say a lot different, but it was different than what was going on behind closed doors. So that's why when I hear things now, I kind of, I take it with a grain of salt, because by the time it gets to us, the public, who knows what the real story is.
Were you ever the Dodgers player representative?
No, I wasn't the player rep, but I did go back. I was very involved. And it's funny because Tommy used to sort of always used to say, you don't want to be the player rep. You never want to be the player rep, because you didn't know what the repercussions were going to be from, ownership. It just, you can be involved, but don't take on that heading. And so, I never had that title, but I was very involved. Went back to Washington in 90, I think it was at 94, 95, I forget, but to lobby, congressmen, House of Representatives, because, what baseball does enjoy that no other, professional sports league enjoys is the antitrust exemption.
That's right.
And that's a game changer. And so we were back there trying to explain to, the elected officials, what that meant and what we were going through. And, it was very enlightening for me.
Would you say that the owners have always fared better than the players in collective bargaining agreements?
No, no, not at all. I would say that in the last few agreement or last few negotiations, yes. But there was a time that I feel like, the union, Major League Baseball Players Association, fared better. And I think, the leadership that we had at the time was as good as anybody's, Donald Fear and Gene Orza. And again, we had some help. Like I said, the government stepped in 94, 95 to issue that injunction. Otherwise, we would have never got anything done. But look, I think the pendulum has swung. I do believe the last few negotiations, have been very favorable for ownership. And is that because ownership was that much better in the negotiations? Was it because the union was maybe focusing on different things? Whatever the reason, the way the game is now, and the way it's set up, I mean, look, there has to be some give and take from both sides.
Well, since you've, I think, put it on the right route by saying that you've been out of the game and not as close, it's hard for me to say to you, what do you think is the biggest obstacle before they can reach a settlement? I mean, we hear about luxury tax, we hear about salary arbitration, we hear about revenue sharing, a lot of things out there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the revenue share. The salary cap is something that is, and it's not called a salary cap, right? But it effectively is a salary cap. And I think, you talk about, you compare it. I've had this discussion with some people that you compare it to other sports leagues, and it works wonderful in basketball and it works wonderful in football. And well, I mean, that's in the eye of the beholder. Does it work wonderful? But what I will say, in both of those leagues, what is significantly different than Major League Baseball is their TV packages are shared. So for instance, in the NFL, the New England Patriots get and the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're getting the same money from a TV standpoint.
Mhm.
Well, that's not the case in baseball. And, you can compare, your large market, whether it's the Dodgers or the Yankees, and what they garner in their local TV revenue package versus, say, the Pirates or the
Right.
Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
And so that's significant. Yet ownership doesn't want to share that, right? They don't want, it's, hey, we're keeping that separate. So then they kind of thrust that issue on the players, and in terms of, hey, we want to have a salary. It's not a salary cap, I get it, a luxury tax, but it functions just as a salary cap. And then you get into the competitive balance. There's a lot of things.
Minimum salary, owners are offering $630,000. The players want $775,000. Do you understand, Eric, why the fans kind of react negatively and might say, hey, the players are too greedy?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I remember when in the mid 80s, when there was labor strife and I was in high school, and I'm thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me. These guys are worried about how much they're getting paid. I'd play this game for free. This is nuts. And that, all this sort of stuff. So obviously that view was, I didn't have all the information. And so then as I learned and I became involved with the union, the reality is yes, that is a crazy amount of money, right? Comparatively speaking, but there are only, 1,000 people that do this thing in the world. And what was crazier is, last year going into the season, and this was not, it's changed because now when you're talking about people that have played in the big leagues, they now include, and rightfully so, the Negro League players. So that number has jumped up a bit. But you're talking about since the beginning of time, there have been 23 or 24,000 people that have played in the big leagues. Like, that's bizarre. When you think of that over the course, only 24. So that's different than being a construction worker, or that's different than being a teacher, or that's different from being a doctor. And I'm not saying what's more important than the other, but what I am saying is when you're talking about a society that rewards, it's a supply and demand sort of thing. And so I get I get the layman saying, like, that's crazy. They shouldn't be making that amount of money. But what these people do is, I mean, nobody does it. And so that creates a demand. I also get into the thing of why guys, making money, or whoever, making money in baseball, it's a finite window. It's a finite window. And the chances of making it are slim. The chances of making it and making a living at it for a number of years is even slimmer. And the chances of making it for 10 years, I mean, that's nuts. And so what do? You pursue your whole life. I mean, up to let's say you chase that dream, and then at 28, look at it, it's not going to work out. Well, while most people are getting into their careers, what are you going to go do? You're going to go give pitching lessons at the local park? You're going to go give hitting lessons? So I don't begrudge people at all for thinking that, man, that's a crazy amount of money. But the reality is that not many people get it. And chasing that is, you got a better chance of going to 7-Eleven and buying a lottery ticket.
One thing surprised me: the average player salary has declined each of the last 4 years. How's that possible?
Well, I mean, again, when you talk about averages, you're just talking about, the average, right? And it's not the median where, half of the group is below a certain number. And you do kind of wonder, you say, hey, how is this happening? But where the game is shifted, towards an emphasis on young players, which, again, the salaries for young players for the first 2-3 years, you can really keep low. And you don't make the game's changed as far as front offices putting together teams. They've become smarter. They've become more efficient. I mean, that's just a fact. And within this system, as smart as they've become, as efficient as they've become, they've been able to figure out a way to make this system favor them. So there's a lot of young talent. You don't have to pay them a lot. No longer are you seeing the big deals or the, not I say the big deals, but the 4-year deal for the 30-year-old guy or the 31-year-old guy, that's when guys used to make their money. Well, those players are being discounted now for a number of reasons, mainly because, for whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, but they say, hey, look at, guys reach their peak, performance wise, naturally when you're, 27 through 30 or 26 through 30. So why am I going to commit a 4 or 5 year deal to a guy that's 31? And yes, you're going to get your deals out of the, the realm of, the superstars are going to get them, but most guys are not superstars.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think there's been such a focus on young talent because it's cheaper. You want guys to get to the big leagues sooner, develop them, and then you have control of them when they're in that 26, 27, 28-year-old range. So you don't have to, pay them an arm and a leg. You're maybe dealing arbitration or, they're third or fourth year.
A few issues seem to have been settled. The designated hitter is coming to the National League. Your thoughts about that?
I like it. I like a lot of the rules that baseball has implemented, especially over the past couple of years. I love the DH. I absolutely enjoy the put extra innings. You put a runner at second. I like the strategy that I like. As a broadcaster, I also enjoy it because I'm not sure, like you did that game in Montreal, right? Where that,
22 innings.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, those sort of things I like. I'm not sure I really am down with the pitcher has to face 3 hitters or complete the inning. But I like the rule. I think the DH for me, creates more offense. What I will say, what I don't really love as a fan, and I probably would have hated it as a player, I'm not big on the shift. I just don't. I don't like that. I don't. There should have to be, certain guys on one side of the field and certain guys on the other. It's kind of like like in the NBA, right? You can't play a zone defense, right? Or so, I mean,
Commissioner Manfred says, I don't want any more 7-inning doubleheaders.
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't mind that either. As a broadcaster, I didn't mind that. And so, you know what else I liked about it? Because they were so infrequent, they were different. And there's a strategy to that, right? Because, you get in the 3rd inning of those games, you're at the midway, you're past the midway point. You just got 3 or 4 innings to close a game out. Every at bat matters in that 7-inning game. Not that they don't in the 9-inning game, but I think, again, just something that provides something a little different and creates some new strategy and creates some interest and some urgency. I'm all for it.
Well, I want to go back now to your career, and we'll start off by saying you were born in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I just learned this a few days ago, and I'll bet you know it. For people who played Major League Baseball who were born in New Jersey, you are second all time in home runs. Did you know that?
No, I was first for a long time, right?
Who's number one now?
Mike Trout. Trout.
Mike Trout, 310.
Yeah.
And you had 284.
Yeah.
Okay. Your family moved to San Diego, where you graduated from high school. Then you came to UCLA. You had a great senior year in Westwood. You hit 415. You had 17 home runs. When did you decide you wanted to play in the major leagues?
Well, so that was my junior year. I was drafted, and I thought going into the draft, and again, you mentioned the year that I had that year. Going into the draft, I would have bet everything I had that I was going to be drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Wow.
Sid Thrift had come out, Larry Doty, the general managers, and I thought I was first round of the Pirates, and yeah, I'm excited. So back then, it was basically you just get a phone call, and I'm at my apartment. There's obviously no internet and no cell phone stuff. So I'm waiting for the phone call, and I know the draft started on the East Coast, and we're an hour into the draft, and I hadn't received a phone call. And I'm thinking, man, this isn't good here. I haven't. And then they were in the fourth round. I get a phone call from the Texas Rangers asking me if I would be interested in signing. They've got, they're in their fourth round pick. And I was hot. I was livid. I was so disappointed. And I said, no, I'm not interested. And I hung up.
Hmm.
The Dodgers called a couple hours later, and they said, hey, congratulations. We just drafted you in the sixth round. We're excited, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm not signing. And I hung up. And
Hmm.
I didn't, because I was so mad. And for the next couple of weeks, I was working out. I was up at UCLA. I was working out with our hitting coach, Tippy Lefevre, brother of Jim Lefevre. And I'm getting ready for my senior year. And it was about 3 weeks into it. I remember driving back to my apartment after hitting with Tippy, and I just thought to myself, like, what am I doing here? Right? I was close to graduating, so that wasn't an issue. I was going to graduate. I just had an excellent year statistically my junior year. And if I thought, look, if I really want to pursue this big league thing and try and chase his dream, I've got nothing left to prove here.
Yeah.
So I called my dad. I said, I think I'm going to call the Dodgers and I'm going to sign. Called the Dodgers back, signed for $32,000 in school, and they sent me up to Great Falls.
I was a little surprised when I saw this. In 1988, the Dodgers won the World Series, but
Yeah.
4 months before you were drafted.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I mean, great.
interesting?
So the funny thing was, so that year I was drafted, Mike Piazza was drafted, and then two free agents were signed also, Raul Mondesi and Pedro Martinez. So
Wow.
that turned out to be a decent
Yeah.
year for him.
The Dodgers had 5 consecutive National League Rookies of the Year. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look at the Dodgers were very focused on the homegrown talent. They had a great development system, and then Tommy and Fred Claire were giving guys opportunities, and so the combination of all of that, we were fortunate, to play during that era where young guys were getting a chance. I mean, just think if you were a young guy with the Dodgers in the mid 70s, you were an infielder. I mean, you had no chance, right? You got Garvey, Say, Lopes, and Russell. Like,
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
give me
Yeah.
to another organization. So, credit to Tommy and Fred Claire that, they gave all of us an opportunity.
You mentioned Mike Piazza. You two were close. Do you talk to him any?
We text once in a while. We're not as close as we once were. He's living in Italy, but actually, I just ironically, I was just texted with him about a week and a half ago because the broken bone that my son Kyle suffered the other day in his wrist, Mike had the exact same issue, except as a catcher. Foul tip, the pisiform bone broken, and so we were texting just about with the process and the healing and the timetable. So, but he's doing well.
Is Mike still on that soccer team in Italy?
No, they're out of that. He and his wife were involved with that for a while, but he's living over there though, raising. He's got 3 kids, and he's doing well.
All right, you're National League Rookie of the Year, 1992. You hit 20 home runs. You drove in 88 runs. Was it a tough transition for you to the major leagues?
Well, I mean, the tough transition was we lost 99 games that year, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that way, and there were expectations. A year before, we had gone down to the last weekend of the season in 91. The Braves, eked it out. We had a tough series in San Francisco to end the year. So for me, I mean, the tough part was I was one of the few young guys on the team. Tommy really took care of me, though. It was a veteran-laden team, and they took the veterans took care of me. I don't know. I don't know if it was good or bad, but man, that was an interesting year. And I go back. I guess the best thing about it is I was able to get comfortable, and by the end of the year, look at I felt like okay, I can play here in the big leagues. The irony of it, you mentioned the 20 home runs. the 20 home runs, that was 11th in the league. Like when you think of that 20 home runs, you go like 20 home runs. What the hell was that? Right. That was 11th in the league, and then, obviously then things started to change.
You won a Silver Slugger Award in 1995. That's given to the best offensive player at each position. That season, you hit 298 with 32 homers and 105 RBI. I think, though, in 1999, you had your best numbers. You hit 304, 34 home runs, 112 runs batted in.
Yeah, I mean, that was better statistically, but the thing about 95, remember, 95 was a shortened season. That was 144 games. And, 99 was a good statistical year. I think the crazy thing is, if I had to look back on it, I believe it was 2000. 2000 may have been 2000. Yeah, 2000. The first half of the season, I had 25 home runs and 70 RBIs at the break. So I'm thinking, holy geez, man, I'm gonna just terrorize this year.
Yeah, threaten Babe Ruth, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it didn't do that. I remember I got real sick over the All-Star break, and then I just never. I think I hit 6 home runs after the break, had, maybe 25 RBIs or something. It just didn't work out the way I had thought. But I mean, statistically, I had some decent years, no doubt.
You are the only player in Dodgers history to hit 2 home runs in the same inning, which you did in 2000. What do you remember about that night?
I see video of it every once in a while, but I don't. I mean, it was against Montreal, the Expos, and obviously now the Nationals. But look. The crazy thing is I remember a handful of events. When I played, right? What amazes me are these guys that talk about, well, yeah, I remember this game and this at bat, and I can tell you the pitch sequence.
Right.
I'm calling BS on all of that, Ross. That's what I'm saying. Because I don't have, it's crazy. And the things I remember probably, were not significant. I remember us clinching down in San Diego in '95, and why? I mean, it was my hometown, but we won the division. And, it was a pop-up. It's like that sort of stuff I remember.
All right, here's another question for you.
Okay.
Who were the 2 pitchers that you hit the home run off of in the same inning?
No idea. Couldn't even tell you. I know that. Well, was Dustin Hermanson one? No.
Julio Santana.
Yeah.
And Anthony Telford.
Yeah. Right. I mean, like
But neither one is in the Hall of Fame.
Right. No, that wasn't off Randy Johnson or Pedro. No.
You were in 15 playoff games.
Yep.
You hit an even 300. You had 4 home runs.
Yep.
You hold the LA Dodger career record for sacrifice flies with 74.
That just means that guys were getting on third base for me. That's all that meant, right?
And you were lifting the ball when you.
Yeah, I was hitting the ball. I was hitting the ball in the air long before it became the thing to do. Right? Is that it?
Here's something that I find very hard to believe. You never got to play in an All-Star game.
Yeah. No. Well, that's what I was. So it was interesting. 95. I thought I had a shot. Felipe Alou did not take me. Right. He took Jose Offerman. And you can tell I remember that, right? In 99 was crazy because that year they had a bunch of guys that got hurt and didn't even, didn't have a chance. Or no, maybe it was 2000. No, 99, Bobby Cox didn't take me, I think. 2000, a bunch of guys got hurt. That was the year I said I had the 25 home runs, 70 RBIs at the break. No other first baseman had more in the National League. Mark McGwire was hurt. Mark McGwire even said, hey, you got to take Karros. So there was this thing, if you remember ESPN, the Sports Center, Dan Patrick.
Yeah.
So he's doing this thing talking about the All-Star game, and he's talking about the players that got snubbed, guys that didn't get selected.
Yeah.
I didn't even make the players that got snubbed list. So that's when I knew I wasn't going well. But I really thought that year, I mean, again, no first baseman had more home runs or RBIs, and I still didn't get selected.
Well, you have the second most career home runs for anyone who has never appeared in an all-star game.
Tim
Tim Salmon hit
Yep.
299,
Yep.
and you hit 284.
Yep. Yeah, interesting.
Who were some of the first basemen who nudged you out?
Well, I mean, look, that era was crazy, right? You had Jeff Bagwell, you had Mark McGuire, you had Todd Helton, Mark Grace, got me in 95. They took him. That era had a lot. Andres Galarraga, was hitting 40 home runs a year. I mean, the thing about it is that era, look at some guys were putting up some pretty prolific numbers, right? And without saying it, I didn't go down that road. So the numbers that I was putting up were the numbers that I would have put up at any time, right? Yeah. I mean, that was the nature of the game. But I played in an era, Fred McGriff, I played in an era that had some pretty darn good first basemen.
Yeah. You may be the last Dodger to have been involved in a certain play. Do you know what I'm referring to?
You're going to say it either a triple play or maybe a game being called.
No. The hidden ball trick.
Oh, the hidden ball. Yeah. Oh, I could do that.
Do you remember pulling that and tagging out the runner as he straight off first base?
So I did it. I remember doing it twice. I did it. Solomon Torres was a pitcher for the Giants. I got him. And then I believe I got Wendell McGee of the Phillies.
No.
Who?
Glenn Murray.
Oh, Glenn Murray with the Phillies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's funny is Dave Cash, the first base coach, ended up getting fired because of that.
No.
It's not funny, but it's just, eventually he got, and that was one of the.
You know how long Glenn Murray was in the major leagues? 2.5 months. As soon as you tagged him out, I think they said goodbye.
That's funny.
Oh, wow. I looked it up. Marty Barrett. Remember Marty Barrett?
Yeah, second baseman for the Red Sox.
He pulled that trick 3 times.
Yeah.
And Ozzie Guillen was tagged out 3 times. Oh. He has the record.
Oh, yeah. Boy. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Okay. Eric, who was the toughest pitcher you faced?
The toughest pitcher? Ooh, man. So for me, I remember the most overmatched at bat I ever had. And it was against K-Rod, Frankie Rodriguez, remember the closer for the Angels? Yeah. And I was with the A's at the time. So I was at the end of my career. This was in 2004. This is when he was at the height of his game. Yeah. And I remember having to go pinch hit against him. And it was 3 or 4 pitches, and I had no chance. And I remember walking back to the dugout just thinking that I had never felt so overwhelmed, so overmatched in my career. And that I will never forget that at bat. I mean, there were always tough pitchers that, Greg Maddux, he wasn't intimidating, but I could never, outside of one game, I never could figure him out. Now the one game was 2 home runs and a double. So I got him then. But
I want to bring something up about that. I was not going to say this, but I will.
Yeah.
We were in Vero Beach one year, and you, being the gentleman you were, said, "Can I talk to you, Ross?" And I said, "Yes." So we went over in the corner, and you said, "You're saying that I'm not doing very well against Greg Maddux." And you explained your thought about that, and you did it in such a classy fashion that I always remembered that, because you didn't come over and scream at me.
I can't scream at you, Ross. Come on, man.
I don't know whether you recall that, but I really.
No, so what's funny is and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think on air you said that I was Greg Maddux patsy.
Uh-oh.
Right? And so, no. But you were right. Like he could. So if you looked at my numbers against it, you're 100% right. And so I'm going to, I shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to tell this story anyhow. So I knew that I could never hit the guy. So when we're in Atlanta, and I forget, it was 95 or 96, and we've got, it's Smoltz, Maddux, and Glavine for the weekend. So we face Smoltz Friday night. So Saturday, we're going to face Maddux. And I've had 0 success off him in my career, a few singles. So Friday night, I say, screw it. I'm going out Friday night. I rolled in Saturday morning at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I was not in good shape. But what's the worst going to happen? I'm going to go 1 for 4, 0 for 4. I do that anyhow when I'm feeling great. That night, home run, double, home run. My first 3 at bats off of Maddox. Most total bases off him in a game of any player in the history. And so, obviously I couldn't physically repeat what I did Friday night ever again. But that was the one time I got him.
That reminds me of a story that Joe Malfitano used to tell. They were playing, I think, in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
It was a weekend series. And they told, let me get this straight now. Malfitano was with the Giants.
Yep.
And they told Willie Mays, you can have Sunday off. So Willie went out on Saturday night and he took his time getting back to the hotel room. Okay. He comes to the ballpark and somebody had gotten ill. And the manager said, Willie, I'm sorry, but you got to play. Oh, goodness. He said to Joe, I think Joe had his locker next to him. He said, let me look at your bat, Joe. And he took Joe's bat, which was lighter, and he swung the bat. And he said, the way I feel right now, do you mind if I use your bat today? Joe said, go ahead. Willie Mays went out and hit 4 home runs in the game.
Oh, God, right? That's crazy. That's great.
And then after the game, they lost the bat. They couldn't find the bat. They finally did, I think, and sent it to Cooperstown.
That's funny.
All right, let's shift now to the current Dodger ball club. Were you surprised Corey Seager left?
No, I mean, so here's the thing. So understand that he's done everything he could for the Dodgers, right? And he went through some trials and tribulations. He had the arm surgery. I think he had Tommy John. He had hip surgery. He had all these things. And so, he's done what he feels like he's sacrificed himself for the organization. He's put himself in a position where he's got the opportunity to go out and be a free agent. He's won a World Series with the Dodgers. He was the World Series, I believe, MVP or playoff MVP.
Yeah.
And then as a player too, look at, they brought in Trey Turner, which was a great move. But if I'm Corey Seager, I'm, wondering like, hey, that's not cool, right? But and from the Dodgers perspective, it's a great move. Organizationally, you've got to do that because you don't know if Corey's coming or going. And then when Corey again has the year that he has, he's got the opportunity, as every player will say, if they get to free agency and you have that opportunity to go out and get the most you can get and create a situation for yourself that you've worked your whole career for, you've got to go out and look. And 300 and some odd million or whatever.
325 million for 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, you have to do that. You have to do that. And people can talk about the romanticism of staying with an organization or, but if the difference is, 50 million or 100 million or whatever it is, I mean, I would challenge anybody in that situation to say, oh, well, no, I'm going to take less because I'm going to be with, I mean, maybe, but that's Corey's decision. And I think the Dodgers on the flip side, they were smart as well too, because, to tie yourself up, with 10 years with somebody that has had some injuries, and those aren't just, hey, your knee got scoped. Those are pretty significant injuries. That's a pretty big commitment. And what Andrew Friedman has done and this organization has done, since they've taken over, they've been very shrewd with the commitments that they make as far as time. Again, granted, the Mookie Betts, but much younger, not injury prone, and fills a lot of voids or checks a lot of boxes that the Dodgers need. As far as right-handed hitter, outfielder, younger guy, superstar player. Somebody that you can present as the face of the organization. I mean, all these things, for me, like I think the Dodgers got a deal there.
Yeah. Max Scherzer signed with the Mets for 3 years and $130 million. I don't think that was that surprising. Do you?
No, especially at his stage of his career. You got to, you're going to chase some money. You're going to go to New York. That's his, basically, it could be his last hurrah. You get 130 million dangled in front of you for 3 years. You're going to New York as well. You've already won a World Series.
He's 37 years old too.
Right. Like, I mean, you got to take that, right? I mean, sign me up.
Do you think Clayton Kershaw returns to the Dodgers?
I do. I don't have any insight on that, but I think there's something to be said about him coming back to the organization. I shouldn't say back. He's never left. Just because I think the organization knows him so well and what he needs to do about, to prepare to go out and pitch. I mean, obviously he's battled some health issues the last few years. Do you really want to go to a new organization, start that whole process over? He's familiar with everything here. Now, granted, he's from there. He's got the, when I say that, if he goes to the Rangers, that's the what you hear. I get the sleeping in your own bed. I get that. Your family. That you can't trade for anything. So, I mean, I think I'll be surprised if he goes to Texas, but I wouldn't be shocked.
Dodgers only have two quality starting pitchers, Dealer and Arias. They got to get one or two more, don't they?
Right, but you figure that Dustin May probably comes back, and
But after the All-Star break, I hear.
Well, so here's the thing: you've got to. The All-Star break might be the beginning of the season, right? Look at I think the Dodgers, they've got arms. I don't worry about the construction of their ball club. I don't, and I haven't worried about it for years. What happens if there are expanded playoffs, right? Then do you really have to? You don't have to play the 162 game season. You just have to be good enough to get in, into the playoffs, right? And once you get into the playoffs, then it's kind of like all bets are off. Somebody gets hot, you ride, 2 or 3 pitchers. But the Dodgers, their development system, the farm system, I mean, it's deep as heck. They've got some live arms, and that allows them to go out and make moves or to bring up, from within. So I don't worry about the Dodgers' depth.
And when this thing is all over, the lockout, you're going to have a lot of people available, aren't you?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, guys looking for jobs, right? Because there's so many unsigned players. But here's the thing. Are you, as an organization, are you going to tap into that? Or are you going to tap into your minor league guys? I mean, just for instance, the Dodgers have, their minor league guys are down in Arizona right now, playing, working out, right? And you're going to have minor league seasons that are going to go on. So do you take guys that are playing every day, or are you going to take guys that haven't played for months? And, it just, there's so many factors and dynamics, variables that are going to enter into this thing, whenever it gets solved.
Sounds like Max Muncy's a question mark.
Initially, right? He's suffered a significant injury, right? And that was something that, as a first baseman, you always fear that the throw into the runner. And it's interesting because you get into that thing of, maybe during the regular season, you don't try to make that play. And unfortunately that was at the last game of the year, it's crazy. I get it in the World Series, but it's just a reaction play, right? And, he put himself in a situation where he was, susceptible to the runner, and, it didn't turn out well for him.
Well, and the thing, when you look at the film of that, the pitcher, when fielding the ball, threw the ball, if he'd thrown it on the second base side of the bag, Max's glove had been on the other side, but it said he threw it almost to the first base coaching box.
Yeah, no. And so, but here's the thing that's interesting, that, like, again, there's something to be said about knowing when to, again, that's a reaction play. It's bang, bang, can't help it. But there are times that, you have to know the situation. You have to know the environment. You have to know the importance of a specific play. am I going to, run the catcher over in June? Because now if it's a World Series or something, yeah, I will. But I'm worth more to my team being out there rather than just pulling up and being out at home plate in June. And so I get back to the thing, that Max could do it over again, right? He'd let that ball go and like hang with him. That's your air, and sorry. I mean that play arguably that play cost them, arguably could have cost them a World Series.
Yeah. The Giants lost Buster Posey.
Yeah.
Who should be favored in the National League West?
Oh, the Dodgers, without question. I think the Padres are going to have talent. And Melvin is going to, he's as good a manager as there is, but there are a lot of personalities in that clubhouse. And to get them all to mesh, I mean, it's great when things are going well. When things aren't going well, it's, with any club, it's, you find out really what guys are made of. And San Diego is an awfully talented group. And, they get on a roll and they start believing that they can do things. And like I said, with Melvin's leadership, that's going to be, Dodgers are going to have their work cut out for them. But again, the Dodgers' depth is crazy, and their ability to go out and make moves, their ability to plug guys in, you really just can't bet against them. I think the Giants, they're gonna miss Posey. They're gonna absolutely miss what was Kevin Gausman. He went to Toronto, I think.
Yeah.
That's a huge miss.
Yeah. You've had a wonderful career. What would be the most memorable moment that you've had in baseball, if you had to think about it?
Most memorable moment? I mean, for me, I'll be honest with you. The thing that I will never forget was my very first appearance, and that's as a pinch runner for Mike Sharperson in 1991 against the Chicago Cubs, and Tommy, put me in as a pinch runner. And that's not like, look, there are a lot of moments that, whether it's, a game-changing home run or walk-offs or playoffs or, but that for me, I'll never forget that, because it was kind of a culmination of, chasing this dream. Right. Yeah. And granted, chasing it and the road is always much more rewarding than the actual act. Right. I mean, I've always felt that way. And I think, but I remember, like, again, running up the steps and running out to first base as a pinch runner. Like, I would have never in a million years if you would have told me, yeah, you're going to get to the big leagues and you're going to make your first appearance as a pinch runner, like that just is bizarre in itself. But I won't ever forget that. That for me is the most memorable moment. And like I said, it's kind of quirky, but that for me is something I'll never forget.
Give us a closing line or something that you'd like to say about anything.
Oh, say anything. It's like I would tell my boys, anybody in life or whatever. One thing you got to do every day, you got to compete. You got to compete, whether that's in anything. You got to compete, and because that's just life. And every single day, compete.
Harry Karros, you've been a good friend over the years. Thank you for taking the time to share these stories with us today. And best of everything to you, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much, Ross. We'll see you at your golf tournament next year, bud.
Okay.
This year, not next year, this year.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.
Take care.